To help you become more familiar with Adobe Illustrator, let's take a tour. To start, you'll open an Illustrator document. With Illustrator CC Open, you can open a file by choosing File in the menus above, Open. In the Open dialog box, navigate to a file you have, or you can open this practice file from the downloadable practice files for this tutorial. Then click Open. After opening a document, you'll usually want to make sure that you can see all of the document content. To do that, choose View, Fit All in Window. With a file open, you'll see the Illustrator workspace. Now, the workspace is made up of an open document in the document window you see here, the menus above, the application bar below the menus, and on Windows, the menus are in the application bar, the Tools panel on the left, and finally, docked panels like the Properties panel you see here on the right. As you explore in Illustrator, you'll find that you can move parts of this workspace to have things you use all the time easily accessible, or maybe to show more of the artwork you're working on and fewer tools and panels. So let's explore the pieces that make up the workspace. In the Tools panel on the left, you'll see tools you can use to create and edit your artwork. Some of the tools have a little arrow in the corner, which means there are more tools you can choose from. For instance, press and hold on the rectangle tool here to show more tools you can choose from. Click to select the Ellipse tool, and notice that the menu of tools is now hidden, and the Ellipse tool is selected. Come back to the top of the Tools panel and click to select this Selection tool. Now, this is a tool you'll use a lot to do things like select and move content. Come out to the document and click in this rectangle to select it. Now, suppose you want to change the color of this rectangle. If you look in the Properties panel to the right of the document, you'll see options available for the content you select, like its position and size, appearance properties like the fill color here. Let's try changing the color of this object. So click the fill color and select another color to fill it with. You can then press Escape to hide the color panel. You'll also see some quick actions down here. These options change depending on what's selected. You can even click underline words like stroke to see even more options. You can then click away from the panel to hide it. Now, the Properties panel is docked on the right side over here with a few other panels called the Layers and Libraries panels. If you want to see the layers or how the content in the document is ordered, for instance, you can click the Layers panel tab at the top to show the Layers panel. To show the Properties panel again, click on the Properties panel tab. If you find that you need more space in the document window to work on your document, you can click the arrow at the top of the dock panels to collapse them. This will give you a little more space to work. To show the panels again, you can click on a panel name to show the panel, and then click on the tab or panel name to collapse it, or you can click the arrow at the top of the dock panels again to show them all. Now, there are actually a lot of panels in Illustrator for you to explore. Each contains different options, and they can be opened from the Window menu up here. Any panel that has a check mark is open and currently showing. You can see the Properties panel has a check mark. Let's open another panel. So choose Align to open the Align panel group. A group is a series of, in this case, 3 panels, and you can see each panel has a separate tab. This group is called Free Floating because it's not docked with the other default panels on the right. You can move them around by dragging the title bar at the top. You can also dock one or more of these panels on the left or right side of the workspace by dragging it into place. So let's dock the Align panel on the right. Drag the Align panel by the tab onto the panel tab names docked on the right. When a blue highlight appears in the Properties panel group here, release the mouse button. The panel is now added to the group. To close the remaining panels left in the group, click the X in the corner. Now, at some point, as you open, close, and rearrange a lot of these panels, you may want to reset them to their original locations. To do this, you can reset the entire workspace. In the application bar above the document, click Essentials and choose Reset Essentials to put all of the panels back to their default locations. Now, if you see something else chosen in this menu, choose Essentials first, and then choose Reset Essentials. As a last step, you're finished with this practice file, so you can close it by coming up to the menu bar and choosing File, Close, without saving. Now that you're familiar with the Illustrator workspace and how to manage panels, going forward, you'll be able to more easily organize panels in a way that complements your working style. Being able to get around in your documents in Illustrator by zooming in and out and moving between artboards will make it much easier to create and edit your artwork. So to get more comfortable with navigating in your documents, you'll explore how to zoom in a document, and then you'll learn how to move or pan in the document window. You can open one of your own Illustrator files or this file from the practice files for this tutorial. Now when you work in Illustrator, your content is on artboards. An artboard in Illustrator is similar to a page in Microsoft Word or Adobe InDesign. In this particular document, you'll see a series of artboards. You can have a lot of artboards in one document, and they can also be different sizes, maybe to design a postcard and a poster for the same client in a single document, which makes it easier to share assets and colors and different things across the different pieces you're creating. The first thing you'll do is select some artwork. So select the selection tool in the Tools panel on the left, and click on Artwork in this artboard. Once you do that, you should see a subtle black line around this particular artboard. That line tells you it's the active artboard, or the one that you're currently working on. To fit the active artboard in the document window, choose View, Fit Artboard in Window. This can help you focus on a particular artboard in your document. Now, suppose you're working on content on this artboard, and then you realize you need to edit artwork on another artboard. You can do that by panning or dragging within the document window with the hand tool. So in the Tools panel on the left, press and hold on the Zoom tool and select the hand tool. Press and drag in the document window to move around. It's kind of like moving a piece of paper on your desk, but digitally. To see all the artboards and the artwork again, you can choose View, Fit All in Window. When working with more detailed artwork, sometimes you want to zoom in or make things appear larger. You can do this several ways. We'll begin by using the Zoom tool. First, let's make sure that nothing is selected. To do that, choose Select, Deselect. To select the Zoom tool in the Tools panel on the left, press and hold on the hand tool and select the Zoom tool. Then come out into the document window, and to zoom in, click once. Where you clicked is now in the center of the document window. Try clicking a few more times to zoom in closely. Now in the lower left corner, you should see this View menu. This is where you can see the current zoom level and also choose a different zoom level, all the way up to 64,000% to zoom in really closely to detailed artwork. From this menu, choose 100% if it isn't already selected, so you can see the artwork at 100% of its original size. Now to zoom out, which makes your artwork appear smaller so you can see more content at once, with the Zoom tool selected, press the Option key on Mac or Alt key on Windows. You should see a minus sign in the Zoom tool now. Click a few times to zoom out. Eventually, if you click enough times, you'll zoom out far enough to see everything. When you're finished, you can release the key. You can also use the View menu to zoom. Select the Selection tool again and click to select this logo. To zoom into the logo, choose View, Zoom in. It's just like clicking with the Zoom tool right on that logo. It's zooming in by a certain amount and centering the logo in the document window. Okay, so that you can see everything in your document again, choose View, Fit All in Window. Being able to navigate your documents by panning and zooming will be really important when you're working in Illustrator. It'll allow you to see more detailed artwork up close, for instance, or even take a step back to view the entire document. There are a lot of ways to begin a new project in Illustrator. You can create one from scratch, start from a template, open an existing file, and more. Let's look at how to create a new document to start. With the latest version of Illustrator CC open, you may see this start screen which appears when no documents are open. Yours may look different, and that's okay. From the start screen, you can open existing files and create new files. Whether or not the start screen is showing, you can also always go to the File menu at the top of the screen to open existing documents or to create a new document. Now to start a new document from scratch, choose File, New. The New Document dialog box appears. And once again, yours may look a little different than what you see here, and that's okay. In this dialog box, you can start by choosing a preset option like Print, Web, or Mobile. So it's important to know before you start designing what type of project you're creating. In this video, you'll create a document for a poster that's meant to be printed, so click Print to show a series of print document presets. When you choose the print preset, other settings like the type of color used and the units of measurement are automatically set to accommodate a print project. After choosing a preset, you'll usually choose a document size. Now, there are several options to choose from within each preset. By clicking View All Presets, you can even see additional sizes here. Select Tabloid, and note that if you choose a preset size like Tabloid, you can always change the size and all the other options after the document is open. You may also see a series of templates in the New Document dialog box available from Adobe stock. These templates can be a great way to learn how Illustrator projects are built, and they can be used to jumpstart a project. On the right side of this dialog box, you'll see a series of options you can set for the document. Now, most of the time we won't have to set all these options, but let's look at some of the options you'll set most. Click to highlight the name and change it to Poster. You don't have to change the name here, but when you save the document later, this name becomes the name of the file. Click Points, and from the menu that appears, choose Inches. These are called the document units. Later, when you want to measure something or look at a ruler, this is the measurement unit you'll see. Now, you can customize the width and height of the document and change the orientation by clicking one of these options. Now, the orientation is actually the direction in which a document is displayed or printed. Click Landscape so the document is in a landscape or horizontal orientation. Artboards you see here are similar to pages in a program like Adobe InDesign or Microsoft Word. You start with one artboard in your document, but you can add more here. You can also do that after the document is created. Now, these are just some of the options you can set to set up the document before you get started. You'll become more familiar with the different options the more you work in Illustrator. Since we've set the basic options we need, click Create to create the document. The new document opens in Illustrator. To ensure that you can see the entire artboard or page, choose View, Fit Artboard and Window. Once the new document is open in Illustrator, you can change the document settings you set when you created it. In the Properties panel to the right of the document, if you want to change the units, for instance, you can click the Units menu. To change the size of the artboard, you can click Edit Artboards to enter artboard editing mode. You can choose a preset page size from the menu in the Properties panel. So why don't you go ahead and choose Letter. You may need to scroll up in the menu that appears. You can change the orientation and a whole lot more. To stop editing these artboard settings, you can click the Exit button towards the top of the Properties panel to exit artboard editing mode. Creating new documents in Illustrator is something you'll likely do a lot. There are many different options to explore when you set up a brand new document. When you're just getting started in Illustrator, keep it simple and know that you can edit document settings like the artboard size later on, the more familiar you become with them. To close this file, you can go up to the menus at the top of the screen and choose File, Close, without saving it. When you create a new file or you make changes to an existing file in Illustrator, you'll need to save your work. So let's look at a few different ways to do that. If you want to follow along, you can open this document from the tutorial practice files. With the file open, let's save a copy of the file. So click the File menu up here above the document. And if this is a brand new document and you're saving it for the first time, you could choose Save. This isn't a new document, so you can't choose Save. We're going to save it somewhere else and give it a new name by choosing Save As. Now, when you first save a new file, or you choose Save As, you'll see this Cloud Document dialog box. In Illustrator on the desktop, you can save your document as an Adobe Cloud document or locally on your computer. Now, a Cloud document is an Illustrator document stored in the Adobe Cloud that can be accessed anywhere you sign into Illustrator. That includes Desktop Illustrator and Illustrator on the iPad. Saving as an Illustrator Cloud document or saving on your computer retains layers, type, and other editable Illustrator properties. Now, the extension for an Illustrator Cloud document is .aic for Adobe Illustrator Cloud. When it comes to Cloud documents, changes are automatically saved, you have access to document history, and you can work offline. In this case, you'll save your document locally on your computer. In this dialog box, click Save on your computer to save it to your computer. On the Save As dialog box that opens, you can switch to saving as a Cloud document by clicking the Save Cloud Document button here. This opens the dialog box for saving to the Adobe Cloud. If you want to save it locally, you can click on your computer, and you'll return to the Save As dialog box. Now, to save on your computer, you can choose a different location to save the file if you like. I'll keep it in the same folder. You can change the name, maybe by adding a hyphen and a version number at the end like this. That way you can make a copy and also keep the original. Make sure that Adobe Illustrator is the chosen format on macOS or Save As Type on Windows. When you save and work in Adobe Illustrator files, the file has a .ai extension, and everything is preserved so you can edit it later as you need. Click Save to save a copy of the file. Now, whenever you save a file for the first time or you save a document as a copy, you'll see this dialog box after saving. This dialog box may seem a little overwhelming. The settings in here actually allow you to save an Illustrator document to previous versions of Illustrator, among other more advanced options. Now, in many cases, you can simply click OK, which is what you can do now. So go ahead and click OK to save the file. Now, in order for someone else to open and view the Illustrator file you just saved, they'll need to have Illustrator. And if they can open a file with Illustrator, they can probably edit it. So at times, you may want to just send a visual copy of your file that anyone can view. You can do that by saving your document as a PDF. You can learn how to save as a PDF in the Share section of this Getting Started course. Creating and editing shapes is essential in Illustrator. In this section, you'll learn how to draw and edit simple shapes. To follow along, open this file from the practice files you downloaded. And once your document is open, to make sure you can see all of the artwork, choose View, Fit Artboard and Window. Now to start, you'll select the shape. So select the Selection tool in the Tools panel on the left, and then click in this white triangle shape to select it. You'll learn how to draw a few types of simple shapes like this triangle, and then by the end you'll be able to add shapes to create the robot on the right. Now you should see a box around the triangle. This is called the bounding box. This is important for editing shapes and it should be on by default. If you don't see a bounding box, choose View, Show Bounding Box. If you see a Hide Bounding Box in the View menu, you're all set. Now you'll draw your first shape, a rectangle. In the Tools panel on the left, click to select the Rectangle tool. Bring the pointer out into the document window and move it around. As you move it, you might see these magenta lines. These are smart guides and they help you align content. If you don't see them, choose View, Smart Guides to turn them on. Now starting on the dashed line here, press and drag to create a rectangle. As you draw with the Shape tool with those Smart Guides on, you'll see a small gray label appear that gives you measurements like width and height. This shows the size of the shape you're creating. Release the mouse button to create a rectangle. Now most of the shapes you draw are called live shapes, which means you can resize and move them without switching tools. For instance, to resize this shape you just drew, move the pointer over one of the corners of the rectangle, and when the pointer changes, click and drag to reshape it, making it about the size of the dotted line behind it. As you drag, watch for this diagonal magenta guide. This indicates that it's a perfect square. When you see it, release the mouse button to make the rectangle a square. You can also press the Shift key while dragging to make a square. Now notice the small widgets in each corner of this shape. Dragging any of these with the shape selected will let you create rounded corners. So drag any one of these corner widgets toward the center of the shape just a little to round the corners. You'll actually find that most of the shapes you draw will have options like these corner widgets. Let's try creating another shape. To see other shape tools, press and hold on the Rectangle tool in the Tools panel on the left to show the Shape menu. Then select the Polygon tool. Starting roughly in the center of this dotted triangle, click and drag to make a shape. Shapes you create with this tool are drawn from the center. When the shape is about this size, press and hold the Shift key to straighten it. Release the mouse button and then the Shift key. Polygons also have shape options like rectangles. For instance, this side widget controls the number of sides on a polygon. So drag this side widget up until the shape has 3 sides. To move a shape with a drawing tool selected, you can drag it from this little circle in the center and position it where you need. Now the last type of shape you'll create is a circle. So press and hold on the Polygon tool in the Tools panel and select the Ellipse tool. Down here, drag to create a circle, And as you drag, watch for these hinting crosshairs, which mean a perfect circle. Release the mouse button when you see them, and the circle is roughly the size you see here. Lastly, you'll create this triangle shape by copying and pasting the triangle you already drew. So select the selection tool in the Tools panel on the left and click the triangle you created. To copy it, choose Edit, Copy, and then Edit, Paste. Drag the new triangle down here. Now to resize this triangle, drag the point on the right side to the left so that it's narrower first. Then drag the top point down to make it a little bit shorter. Finally, drag the shape onto these dotted guides. Now that you have some experience with shapes in Illustrator, you can continue to explore by creating the shapes for this robot, which consists of rectangles, circles, and polygons. The dotted guides will help you to see which shapes to create where. These donut shapes are actually composed of two circles, a smaller circle on top of a larger circle. The smaller circle has a red fill color. You'll learn about changing the color of shapes in the video on changing the color of artwork. In this lesson, you'll learn how to draw a line with the line segment tool. You'll also learn what a path is made of. If you want to follow along, you can open this document from the practice files for this tutorial. You'll start out by adding some branches and a trunk to this tree. To draw straight lines, you'll select the line segment tool in the Tools panel. So press and hold on the shape tool you see here in the Tools panel. I see the ellipse tool, you might see another shape tool, and select the line segment tool. Come out into your design. To draw a line, you press and drag in the direction you want the line to go. So move the pointer into the tree shape. Press and drag down. Notice that you can move in just about any direction to create a straight line. Now the gray box you see that shows distance and angle is a measurement label. It can be really useful when you need to be more precise. When the line looks something like this, release the mouse. Now if you didn't see that gray label, choose View, Smart Guides to turn them on. In Illustrator, this line you drew is called a path. A path is made up of at least two anchor points. You can see them here on the ends of the line, and a line segment connecting those anchor points. We can create all kinds of paths in Illustrator, straight paths or lines, curved paths, and a whole lot more. After drawing this line, you can easily edit it without having to switch tools. To edit the direction and length of this line, move the pointer over the bottom end of the line. Click and drag, and you'll see that you can move one of the points. As you drag, press the Shift key, and the line will be constrained to 45 degrees. When it's straight up and down, release the mouse button, and then the key. Now to change how thick the line is, you can change what's called the stroke weight in the Properties panel to the right of the document. Change the stroke weight to 2 by clicking the up arrow here. Now you'll create a few more lines that will become the branches of the tree. Move the pointer over the line you just drew, somewhere in the tree. Press and drag to create a small line like you see here. Draw one more so you have 2. Now you'll make a copy of a line and move it below the buildings. Select the selection tool and click to select the first line you drew, the trunk of the tree. To copy it, choose Edit, Copy, and then Edit, Paste. We want this line to be straight across horizontally. It's going to go right below these buildings. So to rotate a line, move the pointer just off of one end of the line. And when you see a little rotate arrow appear, click and drag to rotate the line. When the line is perfectly horizontal, release the mouse button. Now to move a line you've drawn, you can drag it from this center point. So drag the line down below these buildings. To make the line longer, drag the right end of the line to the right. You'll see those magenta lines again called Smart Guides. They're indicating that you're making the line longer. You're extending it. Now you'll change the stroke weight and the color of this line. With the line still selected, change the stroke weight in the Properties panel on the right to 16 by choosing 16 from the menu. To change the color of the line, click the Stroke Color in the Properties panel. Click this Swatches button so that you can see a bunch of colors called swatches you can choose from, and then select an orange. Now that you know how to create and edit lines, you can practice creating them by adding to these buildings. Maybe try to add some lines to this window, even changing the stroke color and stroke weight in the Properties panel to the right. In Illustrator, you can use simpler shapes and paths as the building blocks of more complex artwork by combining them in different ways. In this video, you're going to learn how to combine these shapes using the Shape Builder tool to create the final artwork you see on the right. To follow along, open this file from the practice files. To make sure that you see everything, choose View, Fit Artboard and Window. You'll start by creating this main shape. Here there's a circle and a rectangle that are overlapping. They need to be combined into a single shape to give us this shape in the final artwork. Now to combine these shapes, you first need to select them. So with the selection tool selected, drag across these two shapes to select them. If there was other artwork underneath, you could also have pressed the Shift key and clicked all of the artwork to select multiple shapes. To combine the shapes, you'll use the Shape Builder tool in the Tools panel on the left. So select the Shape Builder tool and drag across both shapes to combine them. You can tell what's about to be combined by the cross-hatching that shows. Also, the red outline you see reveals the final shape that will be created. Release the mouse button to combine the shapes. Besides combining shapes, you can also remove parts of shapes with the Shape Builder tool. These shapes need to be combined, and these top and bottom parts need to be removed to create an eye shape from the overlapping area, like you see over here in the final artwork. First, you'll select these shapes with the Selection tool. So select the Selection tool in the Tools panel, drag across the two circles to select them. Select the Shape Builder tool in the Tools panel, and to remove parts of these shapes, press the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows, and you'll see a minus sign in the pointer. When you click, whatever's highlighted will be removed. So with the Option or Alt key held down, click the top part here to remove it, and then with the key still held down, click the bottom part to remove it as well. You can then release the key. Now you'll move this eye shape onto the other shapes to start putting them together. So select the Selection tool in the Tools panel again, and drag the eye onto the first shape you combined. Now you'll create this small moon shape you see in the final artwork from these two small circles. So select these circles by dragging across them, and to zoom in a little to make it easier to see, choose View, Zoom in. Select the Shape Builder tool in the Tools panel, and so that you can remove parts of these shapes, press the Option key on Mac or Alt key on Windows, and this time drag from the right to the left into the overlapping shape to remove those parts and leave a crescent moon shape. Release the mouse button and then the key. Now you'll assemble all these shapes to make the final artwork. So select the Selection tool again, and with this moon shape still selected, drag it onto this black circle. Then drag across both of those shapes to select them, and drag them onto the eye shape. To finish the artwork, drag this blue shape onto the other shapes. Now that you know how to combine shapes in different ways with the Shape Builder tool, experiment with your own artwork. Begin with simpler shapes, combining them to create artwork for logos, posters, whatever you need. Have fun with it. It's really amazing what you can create just by combining basic shapes. Adobe Illustrator excels at working with vector artwork, which is made up of shapes and lines rather than pixels. But you can also add raster images to your designs. Raster images like JPEGs or PNGs consist of pixels which are aligned on a grid to form an image. When raster images are scaled up or down, they can quickly lose quality and appear distorted and/or fuzzy. In Illustrator, if you want to scale or edit a raster image, you can trace the image to create editable paths from it. When you do that, you're essentially turning a raster image into vector artwork, which can be easily scaled up or down without losing quality. Using this project, you'll learn about tracing raster images to create vector artwork. Then you'll see how to edit that traced or vector artwork. Finally, you'll add that artwork to an existing design on the right. If you want to follow along, you can open this file from the downloadable practice files. With the Selection tool selected, click the image on the left to select it. This is a picture taken of a drawing in a sketchbook. Now to capture just the robot sketch and add it to the birthday card design on the right, you'll trace the image to convert it from raster to vector artwork using the Image Trace feature in Illustrator. With the image selected, click the Image Trace button in the Properties panel on the right. Now, when you trace an image, you have a series of options you can set from the menu that appears, depending on the result you want. So choose Default to start. The setting can be really useful if you want to trace content and separate it from a background, for instance. To try another tracing option, click the preset option that now shows in the Properties panel on the right and choose Low Fidelity Photo from the menu. It looks more like the original image, including being in color now. Now, to get the main shapes you need, choose Sketched Art from the same preset menu. There are a host of other options for fine-tuning your tracing in the Image Trace panel you can open here, but our tracing looks good, so we don't need to change any of those options. Now, even though this image is traced and converted to shapes, it still isn't editable yet. When you're finished tracing, you can expand the artwork so it can be edited. Know that once you expand traced artwork, you cannot try other trace settings. You are essentially committing to the tracing you already created. So click the Expand button in the Properties panel to be able to edit the vector artwork. Now to select just the robot artwork, you're going to use the Lasso tool. So in the Tools panel on the left, press and hold down on the Direct Selection tool, this white arrow, and select the Lasso tool in the menu that appears. Come out to the artwork and drag around the robot shape carefully to select just the robot head. If you select more than necessary, try dragging around again. Now to copy this robot head, so we can put a copy on the right, choose Edit, Copy. Then choose Edit, Paste to paste a copy. This robot head is actually made up of a series of smaller traced objects. To keep them together, you'll group them. Click the Group button towards the bottom of the Properties panel. Now to move the robot head into position on the right, select the Selection tool and drag the robot over here. So that it fits within this blue shape, you'll resize it. So drag a corner of the selected artwork and make it a little smaller. As you drag, press the Shift key so you don't distort the artwork. When it's about this big, release the mouse button and then the Shift key. Then drag it into the center of the blue shape behind it. To change the color of the robot head, click the Fill Color in the Properties panel on the right. Make sure this swatch option is selected and select this white color. You can then press the Escape key to hide the colors. So you can more easily see the final artwork, choose Select, Deselect. Now that you know how to trace images in Illustrator and convert them to editable vector artwork, you can trace images to add additional vector artwork to your designs, like tracing photo textures to add textured backgrounds, or tracing hand lettering you draw, and so much more. In Illustrator, you can transform content by rotating, moving, scaling, and more. So let's take a look at some of the ways you can apply transformations to artwork in this project to complete it. You can open this file from the practice files if you'd like to follow along. First, you'll start by resizing some content. So select the Selection tool in the Tools panel on the left. Then click to select the circle here. To zoom into the artwork, choose View, Zoom In, and do that a few times so that it's a little bit closer. Now with the shape selected, notice the box around it with these handles. This is called a bounding box. You can transform artwork in different ways by dragging these handles. If you don't see the bounding box, choose View, Show Bounding Box. If you see Hide Bounding Box, you're all set. Okay, drag a handle on the corner of this box, and as you drag, look for these crosshairs in the center. They tell you it's a circle. Now make sure your circle is about this big, and then release the mouse button. Then drag it onto the center of the flower shapes on the right. Now that's one way to transform shapes, visually, by dragging. Next, you'll transform a shape by entering specific values in the Properties panel. In the Properties panel, which you see here on the right, you can change a shape's width, height, rotation, and a lot more. Specifying values can ensure precision and also lets you see a shape's dimensions and any transformations already applied to that shape. So with the circle still selected, click this option to constrain the width and height, meaning if you change one value, the other changes proportionally. Then select this width value by dragging across and type 0.2. Then click in the height field and you'll notice that the dimension changes maintaining the same proportions. Now you'll rotate a shape. So click this yellow flower shape to select it. This shape needs to be rotated so it looks good when you add it to the other flower shapes you see on the right. To rotate it, move the pointer just off of any corner and you should see these rotate arrows. When you see them, click and drag to rotate it. As you rotate, you'll see a gray measurement label with the rotation angle. Now keep dragging, and as you drag, press the Shift key to constrain the rotation to 45 degrees. When it looks like this, release the mouse button first, and then release the key. Drag this flower onto the flower shapes on the right, roughly in the center. Now it appears behind the other shapes because it was created before the other flower shapes that are above it. All objects in Illustrator are stacked one on top of the previous. This yellow flower shape would look better if it was a little bit larger, so you'll resize this artwork from its center because it's already in the correct position. Start dragging one of the corners of the bounding box, and as you drag, press Shift and Option on Mac or Shift and Alt on Windows and drag to make it bigger. Release the mouse button and then the keys when it's about this size. The Option or Alt key resizes the artwork from the center, and the Shift key constrains the proportions so you don't distort it as you're resizing. Okay, to see everything again, choose View, Fit Artboard and Window. Now you'll move all these flower shapes into position. So drag across the flower shapes to select them, and then drag the entire flower into position here. Now this dome shape you see up here actually needs to be rotated as well. Using the Rotate tool in the Tools panel, you can set a point to rotate around, this point down here. That way you don't have to move it when you're done rotating. So first, click to select this orange dome shape. Then select the Rotate tool in the Tools panel on the left. If you move the pointer over here, you'll notice this crosshair in the center of the shape. This is called the reference point. It tells you that if you rotate the shape, it'll rotate around the center. To move this point, click and release in the corner to set the reference point, or where it will rotate around now. Then move the pointer away, and press and drag anywhere out here to rotate the shape. As you drag, press the Shift key to constrain the movement. When it's in place, release the mouse button, and then the key. So that you can see all the final artwork here, you'll deselect everything. So choose Select, Deselect. There really are a lot of options for transforming artwork, and it's something you'll do often. It's also a great way to create distinctive artwork. So experiment with the different ways to transform you've learned here, from resizing and rotating to skewing, reflecting, and a whole lot more. In Illustrator, artwork like this bird may be made up of several objects that have been aligned or combined to create a finished piece. To keep and move sets of objects together, which allows you to transform and move them together, you can group them. Let's look at how to group objects together first, and then how to edit individual objects within a group. To follow along, you can open this document from the practice files for this tutorial. Now to start, you'll group this bird artwork together. So select the Selection tool in the Tools panel and click to select the wing of the bird. To zoom into it, choose View, Zoom in, and do that a few times so it's a little bit closer. Drag the wing away from the rest of the bird and notice that just one of the shapes moves. That's because this bird is made up of several shapes. Now to put the wing back where it was, choose Edit, Undo Move. Grouping all of the shapes that make up the bird will make these shapes stay together. Grouping artwork can help keep content organized and make it easier to select artwork, like a logo or this bird that contains several smaller objects. So to select all the bird shapes, press and drag across them. To group them together, click the Group button toward the bottom of the Properties panel on the right. You can group all sorts of content together, even group content within another group. Click away from the bird in a blank area to deselect it. Then click to select that wing again. Notice that all of the shapes that make up the bird are selected. Also notice the word Group at the top of the Properties panel on the right, which tells you it's a grouped object. Grouped objects can be moved or transformed as a whole without affecting the individual objects within the group. To resize this bird group, press the Shift key and drag a corner of the group to scale the bird and make it smaller. When you're finished, release the mouse button and then the Shift key. Pressing the Shift key while dragging maintains the proportions so you don't distort the artwork. To see all of the artwork again, choose View, Fit Artboard and Window. Drag the bird down here so you can put it into its final position. Now when you want to edit content within a group, you can either ungroup the content to access the individual objects or simply isolate the group, which is what you'll do next. So next you'll group this sailboat artwork together, then you'll edit the content within that group. To select the sailboat objects, press and drag across all of them down here, and to group them, click the Group button in the Properties panel. Now the orange sail on the right needs to be moved down, but if you click away from the group, then click on that sail, the whole group is selected. To select one object in a group, you can isolate the group so you can edit the individual objects. Double-click the larger orange sail, and the rest of the artwork is dimmed, meaning you can't select or edit it, and a bar also appears at the top of the document window. But you can now edit the individual shapes within this group. This is called isolation mode. Drag the larger sail shape down to align it with the smaller sail. Now to stop editing the group, you can exit isolation mode. Press Escape to exit isolation mode and click in a blank area to deselect the sail. Then click back on the sail to select the entire group. Drag the sailboat group into the water above. Now the sailboat appears behind this wave shape because the wave shape was created after the sailboat, so it's on top of it. Grouping content can really save you a lot of time by organizing your artwork, making it easier to select, move, and transform artwork that's made of multiple shapes. Now that you have an understanding of grouping, you can organize your artwork how you see fit. As you create in Illustrator, you'll most likely need to align content in your design, whether for a website, poster, or other. In this video, you'll learn about the different ways to align content. To follow along, you can open this file from the practice files for this tutorial. Now to make sure that you see all of the design content out in this file, choose View, Fit All in Window. To start with, you'll learn how to align objects to each other with smart guides. In this case, aligning this O shape with the other letter shapes. First, you need to make sure that the smart guides are turned on over in the Properties panel here. Smart guides are temporary guides that are helpful when you move and align content. With the selection tool selected, in the poster on the left, drag this O shape to the right. As you drag, you'll see magenta lines appear. The line you see in the middle of the shape means it's staying aligned with its original position. Now if you drag far enough to the right, you'll see a vertical alignment guide on the right edge when it's aligned with the other letters. When you see this, release the mouse button. To keep all of the fox letter shapes together, you'll group them. To zoom out a little, click in a blank area to deselect. Then choose View, Zoom Out. Press and drag across the fox letters to select them, and click the Group button at the bottom of the Properties panel. Smart Guides can be an easy way to align content, but you can also use the Align options. Next, you'll align all of these text objects to each other. So click to select the text in the center here. Then press the Shift key and click the text to the right and the fox text to the left to add them to the current selection. Shift clicking is a precise way to select multiple objects and can be useful when there are several objects near the artwork you want to select. Now look in the Properties panel to the right of the document. You'll see the Align options. Before you select one of these options, you want to choose what you want to align to. Are you aligning objects to each other, to the artboard, or something else? Click the Align To button and make sure Align to Selection is chosen. This means that selected objects will align to each other. Click the Vertical Align Top option to align the objects to the top edge of the uppermost object, which is the text in the center here. The objects will align to each other. Now this headline text needs to be centered horizontally on the poster. To do that, you can align it to the artboard rather than to the other content. Now remember, artboards in Illustrator are similar to pages in Microsoft Word or Adobe InDesign. So click the headline text at the top here. Notice that the Align options aren't showing in the Properties panel. That's because there's only one object selected. To align a single object to the artboard, you'll open the Align panel. So choose Window, Align to open the Align panel. You can drag the Align panel group by the title bar at the top if you need to move it. Click the panel menu and choose Show Options to see more if you need to. Then click the Align to Selection button at the bottom of the panel and choose Align to Artboard. Now any content you align will be aligned relative to the artboard. Click the Horizontal Align Center button to align the text to the horizontal center of the artboard. To close the panel, click the X at the top of the panel group. Now looking at the design on the right, the text that starts with Fun Fact needs to be aligned with the text down here. Unfortunately, if you try to align these two objects to each other, the lower text object will move up to align to the uppermost text object, this one. Since the text down here is already where it needs to be, the Fun Fact text needs to be aligned to that text. To do that, you can align to a key object, it's called. Click the Fun Fact text, then press the Shift key and click the text here to select it as well. Release the Shift key. Click this text again, and you'll see it has a blue highlight around it. That means it's the key object or the object that every other selected object will align to. In the Properties panel on the right, click the Vertical Align Top button to align the text. The key object doesn't move as you saw in this case. To see the final poster designs with nothing selected, click in a blank area away from the artwork. Using the different alignment methods in Illustrator makes it easier to create cohesive, user-friendly designs for all kinds of projects. They're a great way to save time and maximize the impact of your artwork. In this video, you'll learn how to erase artwork using the eraser tool. Then you'll learn how to cut artwork to create different paths and shapes using the scissors tool. You can open this file from the practice files for this tutorial if you want to follow along. Now to start with, the handle parts that appear between these lines needs to be removed so that text you're going to put here is more readable. You can use the eraser tool to erase content. Now you want to select them first because erasing with the eraser tool only affects selected artwork. Also, know that the eraser tool in Illustrator is only meant to erase vector artwork like shapes and paths, not raster images you place in Illustrator. With the selection tool selected in the Tools panel on the left, click one of the green handle shapes. Pressing the Shift key, click the other handle shape to select them both. To zoom into the selected artwork, choose View, Zoom In a few times. To erase, select the Eraser tool in the Tools panel on the left. When you move the pointer out into the document, the circle and crosshair you see indicate the size of the eraser. So press and drag across the green handles here to erase part of them. Then try pressing and dragging across the line down here, and notice it looks like it's erasing, but when you release the mouse button, nothing happens. That's because the line isn't selected. Now you can also erase in a straight line. This is really useful when erasing along an edge, for instance. To erase in a straight line, you press the Shift key. So pressing the Shift key, press and drag across here to erase straight across. Release the mouse button, and then the key. Now don't worry about it being perfect. If you want to undo what you did, you can always choose Edit, Undo Eraser, and then try it again. Do the same down here with the Shift key held down. After you're finished, release the Shift key and drag across the rest of the green handle shapes in the middle to remove them. Now to temporarily lock the handles so you don't accidentally select or move them later, choose Object, Lock, Selection. Another way to edit vector artwork is to cut shapes and paths to create new ones. You'll remove the center part of this line between the handles. Now to do that, you'll cut this single path into 3 separate paths using the scissors tool so you can delete the middle path. Now to cut this line, you're going to select it first. So select the selection tool and click to select this line. Then drag it down a little bit so it's easier to see. To select the scissors tool in the Tools panel on the left, press and hold on the eraser tool to show the other tools. The scissors tool is meant to cut a path into multiple paths or cut a shape at a point. So select the scissors tool and click on the path here to cut it. I know it's hard to tell, but this path is now cut into two different length paths. Click over here to cut the path on the right, and there are now 3 paths. Now you'll select the middle path and delete it. Select the selection tool, click away from the artwork, then click on the center path to select it. Press backspace or delete to remove it, and drag each of the remaining paths up here. To see the whole design again, choose View, Fit Artboard and Window. To finish this, drag this Nowhere text into the area where you erased. The tools and methods you just learned can be used to create all kinds of artwork. For instance, you could create a cloud by drawing a circle, then erasing parts of it with the eraser tool. Try editing some of the paths with the eraser and scissors tool and see what you come up with. To start working with color in Illustrator, you'll learn what stroke and fill are, apply colors that come with each document, and then you'll make a new color using the color picker. To follow along, you can use your own file or you can open this file from the practice files. You'll start out by learning what stroke and fill are by selecting some artwork. So select the selection tool in the Tools panel on the left and click to select this large green shape. Shapes and other vector artwork as well as text in Illustrator can have a fill and a stroke. For this green shape, the green color is the fill and the red color is the stroke or border surrounding the fill. You can apply a solid color like the red or green, a gradient, which is basically a blend from one color to another, or a pattern to the fill or stroke of an object in Illustrator. Now, if you look in the Properties panel to the right of the document, you'll see a fill color and a stroke color for the selected artwork. Click the fill color, and you'll see an option for showing a series of default saved colors called swatches. There's also an option for mixing or creating your own color. Make sure the swatches option is selected. Each new document you create comes with a number of default swatches. Try clicking a few of the colors to see how they look in the document, and notice that there are some pattern and gradient swatches as well. Make sure you wind up with a red color in the shape. Now to change the stroke color for the selected shape. In this case, you'll remove it. So press Escape to hide the color panel. Click the stroke color below the fill color here in the Properties panel, and make sure that the swatches option is still selected. Choose the color None to remove the red stroke. Press Escape to hide the panel. Having default colors is a great way to jumpstart your design, but what if you want to make your own colors? You can use several methods in Illustrator, including using the color picker to do that. Next, you'll make a new color for the red shape on the right, so click to select it. The first thing you need to do is decide which color to change for the selected artwork, the fill or the stroke. If you look at the bottom of the Tools panel on the left, you'll see 2 boxes. They represent the fill and the stroke. To edit the fill, in this case, double-click the fill box to open the color picker. Now in the color picker dialog box, you can create color in a lot of ways. Visually, typing in exact number values, even choosing from existing color libraries that come with Illustrator. You'll create a color visually. If you drag in the color spectrum bar here, you can pick a color like a light blue color. To pick the exact color you want, you can then come into this color field and click. The color you selected is showing here. Now to apply the color to the fill of the selected shape, simply click OK. Making a color with the color picker is a great way to quickly create a color, but that color isn't automatically saved so that you can use it again. This red shape needs to have the same blue fill color as the blue you just created. If you want to apply the same formatting from one object to another, like the blue fill color, you can select the shape you want to change, then click another object with the eyedropper tool to apply the same color. So click to select this red shape. In the Tools panel on the left, select the eyedropper tool. Click the blue shape to apply the same fill and stroke to the red shape. You're essentially sampling the color. To deselect the artwork, choose Select, Deselect. Using Color Well can mean the difference between good design and great design. And now that you know how to apply and make your own colors, you can experiment freely and find the exact colors you need for your designs. To work smarter in Illustrator, you can save a color you create in a document as a swatch and reuse that color later, which allows you to work faster and achieve color consistency. To finish this design, you'll save a color you create as a swatch in your document, and then apply that color to artwork. You can open a file you have, or open this document from the practice files for this tutorial. With the selection tool selected, click this green building shape. So that you can easily apply the color fill of this shape to other objects, like the other building shapes, you'll save this green color in the document as a swatch. In the Properties panel on the right, click the Fill color, and make sure that this Swatches option is selected to see a host of colors that are saved as swatches in this document. To save this new color as a swatch, click the New Swatch button at the bottom of the panel. In the New Swatch dialog box that opens, you can give the color a name, like buildings or something else, something that makes sense to you now and will also make sense to you later. Consider that you may use this color for something other than just building shapes in the future. Notice the global option here, which is selected by default. This means that if you later change the color of this swatch, everything with the color applied will update. Deselect Add to My Library so the color isn't saved in a Creative Cloud library, and then click OK. You should now see it as a swatch in the panel. The swatch has a border highlight that means this color is applied to the fill of the selected artwork. Know that swatches you create are only saved in the open document. Now that the color is saved as a swatch, you can easily apply it to other artwork. Click one of the blue building shapes, and to select the others, press the Shift key and click the other two buildings to select all three. Pressing the Shift key when you select artwork allows you to add objects or remove them from the current selection. Okay, now you'll apply the swatch you made. Click the Fill color in the Properties panel on the right. You should see this little white triangle in the corner of the swatch. That means it's a global swatch. So if you edit that color, it will edit all content with that swatch applied. Select the swatch you created to apply it to all of the selected shapes. Press Escape to hide this panel, then click in a blank area so you can deselect those building shapes. Now you'll edit that green swatch. Editing a global swatch you create by default will update all of the building shapes at once, even without selecting them. With the selection tool selected, click one of the green shapes. That way we can see the colors over here in the Properties panel. To edit the green color, click the Fill color in the Properties panel and double-click the green swatch you made. When you're creating a swatch, you're usually mixing various colors together. Colors created for print projects combine 4 printing inks found in a typical printer: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, also known as CMYK. To change the color swatch, you can edit each of the CMYK colors independently, adding more or less of each to the overall color. You can drag a slider like the yellow color here to add more or less of a color to the overall mix. Or if someone gives you specific color values, you can type them in. Drag the cyan or blue slider to the left to remove cyan, making the color more yellow-green. To see the change in the artwork, select Preview. If you need, you can drag this dialog box out of the way by the title bar at the top. Notice that all of the building shapes with that swatch applied have changed. Click OK. Then, to deselect everything, click in a blank area. Saving your own colors as swatches can help you work faster and achieve more consistent color across your artwork. It's also fun, so take a few minutes to experiment with color in this artwork or in your own. To complete this logo design, you'll learn about working with the stroke of an object. Then you'll explore adding and editing dashes to lines, and finally add arrowheads to these paths. If you'd like to follow along, you can open this file from the practice files for this tutorial. The first change you'll make is to the appearance of the stroke or border on this shape. With the selection tool selected in the Tools panel, click to select this blue circle. Notice the weight or size of the stroke in the Properties panel to the right of the document. It's 15. To change the stroke weight, you can click the arrows to the left of 15, choose a value from the menu, or even type a value in. To make the stroke smaller, change the weight to 13 by clicking the down arrow a few times. In addition to the stroke weight, you can also change other appearance properties for strokes. In the Properties panel, click the word Stroke to show the Stroke panel. There are a lot of options for strokes in here, like aligning the stroke to a path, adding a dash to it, adding arrowheads, and a whole lot more. To align the stroke in a different way on the path, click Align Stroke to Outside. Aligning the stroke to the outside of a path will place the stroke outside of the shape, giving you more room inside the shape, maybe so you can add text inside the shape, for instance. Click Align to Center to center the stroke on the edge of the circle again. To apply a dash to selected artwork, select Dashed Line. You can create different types of dashes, and dashes you create form a pattern that repeats along a path. For instance, change the dash to 7, then click in the gap field to the right of that. Illustrator applies a dash that's 7 points in length, then adds a gap of 7 points, then repeats that along the length of the path. Click in the gap, type 9, then click in the next field to see the change in the shape out there. Now a 7-point dash is followed by a 9-point gap, and that pattern is repeated on your shape. Now to make the stroke smaller, change the stroke weight to 1. Press Escape to hide this panel. To remove the fill from this shape, click the fill color in the Properties panel. Make sure that the Swatches option is selected up top, and then choose None. Now you can also add arrowheads to your artwork. Next you'll add arrowheads to the start and end of both of these lines. So to select them both, with the selection tool selected, click one of the lines in the middle, then shift-click the other to select both. To add arrowheads, click the word Stroke in the Properties panel on the right so you can see that stroke panel again. Now you can add an arrowhead to the start of the path, or the end of a path, or both. Click the arrowhead menu on the left to add an arrowhead to the start of the path, or where you started drawing the path. You can see there are a lot to choose from. For this, choose Arrow 14. By default, the arrowhead is scaled at 100% of the stroke weight. Change the stroke weight to 3, and you'll see that the arrowhead gets bigger as well, relative to the stroke weight. If you want the arrowhead to be smaller or bigger than it is, you can change the scale below each here. Now you'll add an arrowhead to the end of both of these lines. So click the arrowhead menu on the right and choose Arrow 18. If the arrowheads are on the wrong end of the path, you can click this button to swap them. Make sure they look like this before you continue. Press Escape to hide the stroke panel, and also click in a blank area of the document so you can deselect all of the artwork. Now that you know more about changing the appearance of strokes, you can play with using different types of strokes in your artwork. For instance, you could create a stitching effect with a dashed line, or even add arrowheads to an infographic or a diagram. There are so many ways to be creative with color in Illustrator, including applying gradients to your artwork. A gradient is a blend between two or more colors, like you see in this shape. To finish this icon artwork, you'll apply an existing gradient, then edit that gradient to suit your design needs. If you'd like to follow along, you can open this document from the practice files for this tutorial. You'll start by filling this shape with a gradient. So with the selection tool selected, click in this background shape to select it. To fill a shape with a gradient, click the fill color in the Properties panel on the right, and make sure that the swatches are chosen so you can see the default color swatches you can use. Illustrator documents come with a series of default gradient swatches. Try clicking these gradient swatches one at a time to see how they affect the fill of the shape. Gradients can add interest, depth, and dimension to your artwork. And in Illustrator, gradients can be applied to the fill or stroke of most objects. Make sure you finish by applying the gradient called white-black here. Once you apply a gradient, you can then edit the colors as well as how it appears in the selected artwork. To edit the gradient, click the Gradient Options button at the bottom of the panel to show the gradient panel. You can move the gradient panel around if you need by dragging the title bar at the top. In the gradient panel, there are a lot of options for editing a gradient, but you'll simply focus on editing the colors in this gradient. Since you applied the gradient to the fill of this shape, you need to make sure you're editing the fill in the gradient panel and not the stroke. So click the fill box so it's on top if it isn't already. Whichever is on top, the fill or the stroke, is what you change for the selected artwork. This color bar shows you the overall color gradation you see in the artwork. These two little color circles, which are called color stops, represent the colors in the gradient. You should see white and black. Drag this white color stop to the right and watch what happens to the artwork when you release it. Dragging it closer to the second color means the transition from white to black in this case is much shorter. Drag that white color stop back to the left end. If you want to change the colors in a gradient, you can edit each color separately. Double-click the white color stop to edit it so that you can see the saved color swatches that come with the document. Click the Swatches button. Then select the color named Cream. To change the other color in the gradient, click in the Gradient panel to hide the swatches, then double-click the black color stop. Select the color swatch named Blue in the panel. With the colors set, you can now edit the gradient within this shape using the Gradient tool. Click the X at the top of the Gradient panel so you can close it. In the Tools panel on the left, select the Gradient tool, and you should see a bar appear across the fill of the shape. This shows the direction and length of the gradient fill. You can also see the two colors on either end, those color stops you saw in the Gradient panel. To change the direction and length of the gradient, you'll drag across the object. So starting toward the bottom of the shape, press and drag up to almost the top. After you release the mouse, you just change the direction of the gradient, and you also set the length of the gradient, which is how long it takes to blend from the cream color to the blue color. So that you can deselect the artwork, choose Select, Deselect. Adding gradients to artwork can open doors to new types of creativity. You should now be able to use gradients to do things like add depth to a button, or create the perfect setting sun for a poster, for instance. If you need to change the color of artwork, maybe making all colors in a poster lighter, or creating different versions of a single logo, for instance, having to change each and every color can be really time-consuming and challenging. Using the Recolor Artwork feature in Illustrator, you can do this simply and quickly. To follow along, open this document from the practice files for this tutorial. Now, to recolor artwork, first you need to select the artwork you want to recolor. In this case, you'll adjust the colors for all of these grouped lions. With the selection tool selected, click one of the lions to select them all. Now you can recolor all of the selected content at once. In the Properties panel on the right, click this Recolor button to open the Recolor Artwork dialog box. You can move it if you need by dragging up here. Recolor Artwork in Illustrator lets you create unlimited color variations instantly with a color balancing wheel, curated color libraries, or this color theme picker. Now in the color wheel, all of the colors that Illustrator found in the selected artwork are represented by these little circles called handles. The pink from one of the backgrounds, the blue from one of the lion's manes, and so on. You can change these colors in whatever way you want. For instance, if you drag any of these color handles, you edit the hue or color for all of them. Dragging that color handle toward the center decreases the saturation for just that one color. If you drag the largest handle you see here, called the base color, and then you release, you can change the hue and saturation for all of the colors. Now, if you want to change the colors independently, click the Link, Unlink Harmony Colors option here. Then you can drag a color handle into another part of the color wheel, and notice that just that one color in the artwork changes when you let go. If you double-click on one of the color handles, in the Color Picker dialog box, you can change the color values visually and by entering the values. And click OK to accept it. Now, if you want, you can undo a few color changes by clicking Undo Changes up here, or even clicking Redo Changes to redo them. To change the colors back to the original colors, click Reset. That's really helpful if you experiment, but then you want to go back. Now you can recolor artwork using predefined colors available under the Color Library menu here. You can choose from color groups, document swatches, or even preset color themes. Try choosing a few. You can then always edit the colors together or separately in the color wheel. Now with the Color Theme Picker, you can pick and extract color from one or more artwork or images already in the document. So let's try it. Click the Color Theme Picker button to activate the color picker. Click this image and you'll extract and apply the color from it. You can also click Vector Artwork like this group of shapes. Know that if artwork is not grouped, only the object you click on will have color extracted. You can even drag to create a marquee selection of specific parts of artwork to extract just those colors. Currently, this only works on vector artwork, not images. Now, to pick colors from more than one object, press the Shift key and click on the image here, for instance. You'll extract those colors as well. Now, the color palette you see here was downloaded as a JPEG image from the Trends section on color.adobe.com and was placed in here. Try clicking on that to extract the colors. Now, you can also view the weight of colors present in the artwork in the Prominent Colors section toward the bottom of this dialog box. The more prominent colors are categorized based on the hue and shade of the color. To adjust the weight of a color in the artwork, below the color bar, move the pointer between two colors. Drag the slider to the right to make the color to the left of the slider have more weight. You can also then drag it back if you want. With the color theme picker still selected, I'll click back on the image to extract those colors and try adjusting one of the prominent colors down here. Once you're happy with the color, you can then save those colors in the Swatches panel to reuse them later by clicking the folder icon down here. You can save all of the colors or choose Save Prominent Colors to only save the colors shown in the Prominent Colors section. Once you're finished, select the Selection tool and click away from the artwork to close the Recolor Artwork dialog box. Instead of editing the colors in your artwork separately, the Recolor Artwork feature gives you a powerful way to edit a series of colors quickly and visually. Now you can explore adding color in your own projects, maybe creating several color versions of a logo. Adobe Illustrator makes it easy to add text to your different projects and gives you some really powerful formatting options as well. To get started with type, you'll add a single line of text with the Type tool and apply a few basic formatting options to it. To follow along, you can open your own Illustrator document or this file from the practice files for this tutorial. If you open this file to make sure you can see all of the artwork in the document, choose View, Fit All in Window. To start with, select the Type tool in the Tools panel on the left. In a blank area in the artboard on the right, simply click to add some text. After you click, a small line of text should appear. This type of text is called point type and is perfect for creating a headline on a poster or a line of text for a logo, for instance. The text you see is placeholder text and something you can replace. With the text still selected, type Designs. To zoom into the text so it's easier to see, choose View, Zoom in, and do that a couple of times so it appears a little larger. Now, so that you can move the text object and resize it and do different things to it, select the Selection tool in the Tools panel on the left. Come to a corner of the box around the text and drag. Notice that you're stretching both the text and the box. This can be really useful when you're trying to stretch your text in different ways, maybe to achieve a certain look for a logo or for a heading for a poster, for instance. To undo the text sizing you just did, choose Edit, Undo Scale. Now, to continue typing text, double-click the word Designs to switch to the Type tool. Insert the cursor after the word Designs and type Made Simple. If you were to keep typing right now, the text would continue in a single line unless you press Return or Enter to create a new paragraph. To see both the artboards again, choose View, Fit All in Window. Select the Selection tool and the text object should still be selected. To make the text a little bit smaller, in the Properties panel to the right of the document, you should see the Font Size option. Click the arrow to the left of the font size to make the size 11 point. Now you'll drag it where it needs to be. So move the pointer over the text and drag it down into the lower right corner of the artboard on the left. Now, since the text is black and the background is dark, you'll change the fill color of the text to make it more readable. In the Properties panel, click the Fill Color. Make sure the Swatches option is selected so you can see some default colors that come with your document. And then select this light green color and you should be able to see the text now. You can press Escape to hide the colors. And then click away from the text to deselect it. Now that you know how to add text and make some simple formatting edits, try adding text to one of your own Illustrator projects, maybe for a web design, an icon, or a logo. In this video, you'll learn about adding paragraphs of text with the Type tool and applying a few basic formatting options. If you'd like to follow along, open your own Illustrator document or this practice file from the files for this tutorial. To add a paragraph of text to this document, select the Type tool in the Tools panel on the left. Then move the pointer into a blank area on the artboard on the right. Click and drag to create an area for your text. Placeholder text should appear in the type object and also be selected. This type of text is called area type, and it's similar to how you create text in Adobe InDesign. It's also how you create paragraphs of text in Illustrator. With the placeholder text still selected, type in some text. I'll type in, "Let us market your business. Quick, simple, and elegant designs, all made in-house by our top designers." If you have text you created in another program, you can copy and paste that text in Illustrator, or you can choose File, Place to place Word documents, RTF files, text files, and a lot more. Now, to move the text into position in the design, select the Selection tool in the Tools panel on the left. Drag from within the text to below this heading. To resize the type area to fit better in the design, click and drag a corner of the type area. Notice that the text wraps within as you drag. If you drag the corner, making the type area too small, a red plus will appear in the lower right corner, telling you that the text no longer fits. This is called overset text. Drag that corner to make sure you see all of the text. Now, to make the text a little bit smaller, in the Properties panel to the right of the document, you should see the font size option. Click the arrow to the left of the font size to make the size 11 point. And then click away from the text to deselect it. Now you can add text to all kinds of projects you create, like descriptive text for a brochure, copy on a website, or even content for your own package design. Adobe Illustrator offers a lot of ways you can fine-tune the appearance of text in your projects. In this particular project, you'll create some headline text and apply formatting options like Adobe fonts, size, and color to make it look better. If you want to follow along, open your own Illustrator document or this file from the practice files to this tutorial. First, you'll add some text to the project. So select the Type tool in the Tools panel on the left, and in a blank area of the document over here, click and drag to create an area of text. Type Designs Made Simple to replace the placeholder text. This text needs some formatting help. It needs to be larger, have a different font applied to give it a different appearance, and a few more things. To apply formatting like font and size, you will select the text with the Type tool. Know that if all of the text in an area has the same formatting applied, you can simply select the Type object with the Selection tool. Click and drag across all of this text to select it. Most of the formatting for your text is found in the Properties panel to the right. There are a lot of text formatting options you can experiment with, including font, font size, leading, and more. Now, to change the font for the text, click the Font Family menu here. You should see the selected text Designs Made Simple is showing as sample text to easily preview a font on the text. You can choose from the list of fonts on your machine, but you can also browse Adobe fonts from the thousands available with your membership. Click Find More in the menu to show the Adobe fonts. Your available list of fonts might look different, which is okay. Your font list depends on the type of Creative Cloud membership you have and which fonts you've already installed. And keep in mind that Adobe is always adding more fonts for its members. To sort the fonts based on certain properties, click here. You can actually sort based on serif, sans serif, different font weights, and more. We can simply select a font, so press Escape to hide these options. Scroll in the font list and find Lato. Click the arrow to see the font styles, and then click the icon to the far right of the name to sync Lato Black to your machine. In the message that appears, click OK. The font is now syncing to your machine. You can filter to see the Adobe fonts you've synced in the Font Family menu here. After a bit, you should see the newly installed font, Lato Black. Click to apply it to the text. Now you'll change the font size to make it larger. So from the Font Size menu over here in the Properties panel, choose 36. You may find that some of the text is now hidden. If that's the case, select the Selection tool and drag a corner of the Type object to make sure that all the text is showing. Then to move the text into its final position, bring the pointer over it and drag it here. To change the color fill, click the fill color in the Properties panel. Make sure that the swatches option is selected, and then select this green swatch. You can press Escape to hide the colors, and then click away from the text to deselect it. As you can see, Illustrator offers a lot of text formatting options you can explore, from formatting logo type to fine-tuning the appearance of text in an app design. You can now format your own text to match your design needs. In Adobe Illustrator, there are a number of methods and tools for being creative with text. In this video, you'll see how to add text to a path. You can add text along the edge of a path, the inside or outside of a shape. To follow along, you can open this file from the practice files for this tutorial. To start, you'll add some text around this yellow circle. To do that, select the Type tool in the Tools panel on the left and move the pointer over the top edge of this yellow circle. Now the pointer will show a circle next to it. If you see that, it means that if you click, any text you type will go inside of the circle, and that's not what you want. Press Option on Mac or Alt on Windows, and with the pointer over the edge of the circle, click. The yellow fill of the shape disappears because this is now a text object. Type Bobby's Campfire in capital letters. To select the text, click and drag across it so you can apply some text formatting to it. In the Properties panel to the right of the document, select the text size and type 20. Press Enter or Return to make the text larger. After changing the font size, click the Font Family menu and choose another font. I chose Arial Black. Now you'll rotate the text so it looks a little more centered on the top of the circle. You need to use the Selection tool to do this. So select the Selection tool, move the pointer just off a corner of the box around the circle, and when you see rotate arrows, drag until the text looks centered on the logo. Then click in a blank area to deselect the text. There really are a lot of ways to be creative with text, including adding text on a path. Now that you know how to add text on a path, you can make a creative poster headline or add text on a path as a design element in any project you create. In Adobe Illustrator, you can get really creative with your type, including editing individual letters to create unique stylized text. Next, you'll learn how to convert text to outlines so that you can reshape it with the Direct Selection tool. You can open this file from the practice files for this tutorial if you want to follow along. With the practice file open, you'll most likely see the Missing Fonts dialog box, since an Adobe font was used in the artwork. Access to the Adobe Font Library is included with your Adobe Creative Cloud membership. Now to fix the missing fonts, click Activate Fonts to sync the Adobe font to your computer. After the font is synced, you can click Close. Now if for some reason you can't sync the font, you can click Close, select the text, and choose another font in the Properties panel. The final text is at the bottom of the artboard. You'll work with the text at the top of the artboard to make it look like the final text. With the Selection tool selected, drag across all of the text at the top of the artboard to select it. This is text, which means you can change the font, font size, and other text formatting options. Now to edit the text as if it were drawn shapes, you need to convert the text to vector paths. To do that, choose Type, Create Outlines. The text is now composed of shapes that you can edit. Click away from the content, and then click to select the Uno group of text shapes. To edit the O in those shapes, like you see in the final artwork down here, you'll zoom into it. So choose View, Zoom In. Next, you'll use the Direct Selection tool to select anchor points in the letter shapes, and then modify the letters. First, make sure Smart Guides are turned on by choosing View, Smart Guides. There should be a check mark next to Smart Guides. Smart Guides will help to easily align the letters with each other as you modify them. Now, select the Direct Selection tool in the Tools panel and drag across the entire top half of the O. Move the pointer over one of the anchor points you see, and you can tell which are selected because they're solid blue in color, and drag up to align it to the top of the R. A magenta Smart Guide will appear on the top edge when it's aligned. Now you'll make some edits to the Numer text here. To select the text, select the selection tool and click the text to edit it. After outlining text, it becomes a group of shapes. To move the letters independently, not as a group, you'll ungroup them. So click the Ungroup button toward the bottom of the Properties panel on the right. To deselect the letters, click in a blank area. Now you can edit the letters independently since they're no longer part of a group. Click to select the U and drag it straight down. Magenta Smart Guides will appear when it's aligned with its original position and with the U in Uno. Then, drag the N over to the right above the U. Once again, the Smart Guides will tell you when it's aligned. Now you'll edit the letter M by stretching the bottom of the letter down. Select the Direct Selection tool and drag across the bottom part of the M to select the anchor points down there. Move the pointer over one of the selected anchor points and drag down, aligning it with the bottom of the U. If you find yourself moving the entire letter M, you can choose Edit, Undo Move, reselect the anchor points, and make sure you're dragging by an anchor point. To see the final artwork, choose Select, Deselect. There are a lot of ways to be creative with text in Illustrator, including reshaping letter forms. Now that you know how to create outlines from text and reshape it, you can create some really creative text for a logo or any other design element you can think of.